Welcome to Power Lunch Live on this special edition. I don't normally come out of the woodwork on the show. It's been a while since I've done a show, but I had to come out of the woodwork, come out of nowhere to have Jay Rosenzweig on the program. So Jay and I met at Collision a couple months ago in Toronto, and I'm fascinated by this guy. I think you're going to be fascinated by him too. He is a globally respected entrepreneur, impact entrepreneur, I might say, humanitarian leadership strategist with an illustrious background I could go into, but he's he's studied law. He's a driving force behind Rosenzweig and Company. He's also an executive producer on Sean Penn's new film, Superpower, which is focused on President Zelensky of Ukraine. He's a passionate advocate for hate in all its forms. So we're going to talk about his work with the Wallenberg Center for Human Rights. You've also been publishing this report. We're talking about the report that you publish every year. That's read by everybody from the UN to countries that use this report. And we'll talk. I'll let you explain what that is. So Jay, it's a pleasure to have you on. You and I met through David Meltzer, and anybody that Dave knows and introduces me to, I know is a good person, a good human. So welcome.
Happy to be here. Thanks so much for having me, Rhett.
It's fantastic. And so I got to dive into, you've got this mission. You're a man on a mission, right? And you've been called. I saw a newspaper article about you that said, this is the man that brings celebrities, politicians, and entrepreneurs together for social change. Talk about that and talk about what your mission really is.
Oh, that's great. Well, thank you. I was fortunate to have had many great mentors and inspirations throughout my life, starting with my parents. Growing up in Montreal, we never had a lock on the door. We never had an alarm. My parents were very welcoming people and taught me really the importance of having an open mind and being accepting of all people and helping others. And that led to ultimately me studying philosophy and law. I met a very important mentor in law school at McGill University. His name is Erwin Kotler. He's an international human rights champion who represented people like Nelson Mandela and Natan Sharansky. And a lot of what he did actually inspired me. He went on to become Canada's Attorney General and Minister of Justice, where he enacted perhaps the first same-sex marriage legislation. Certainly was a pioneer in that regard. He freed more people who were wrongfully convicted in 1 year, more than any of the previous ministers combined. And you mentioned the Raoul Wallenberg Center for Human Rights. When he left Parliament here in Canada, he asked me to be the board chair of his organization, which I was thrilled to do, and happy to get into some of the work that we do there. But really was inspired from an early age, sort of every step of the way, and was grateful to have come across and to have been brought up by some really amazing people who taught me the importance of giving and the importance of really trying to make a difference and have an impact in the world.
So I understand all that, but most of us, when you start a successful business and you get wrapped up in that, and you get wrapped up in making money and doing all the things, the hustle, right? The grind that we get into. How did you stay focused on you, on the core of who you are, and keep that vision and that work in mind? And because it's so easy, I think, we're all busy, we're all trying to make a living, and we're all trying to make impact in our businesses. But how do you find that time? How do you carve out that time? And how do you keep that core to who you are and the kind of things that kind of impact you want to have? If that makes the question.
It does make a lot of sense. And a lot of it, again, has to do with my grounding. It's interesting. I kind of have imbued in me, I think genetically and also through upbringing, this entrepreneurial spirit. So my father was an entrepreneur. He built an electrical contracting business. from the ground up at the age of 20. His office was carved out of a piece of our garage, nothing fancy or wasteful about the business, but for better or for worse, all I heard in the house was business talk over the dinner table, etc. So I had these kind of two, which might seem like sort of competing passions, but what I realized is that one can actually combine profit and purpose to a large degree. So a lot of the businesses I'm consulting to, a lot of the businesses I have shares in, combine profit and purpose. So a perfect example of that would be a company out of Los Angeles named Full Cycle, run by an amazing human being named Ibrahim Al Husseini. And we buy businesses and invest in major projects whose mission it is to reverse climate change. So one of the businesses we bought, for example, turns waste into clean energy. Very profitable business. I foresee this being even more profitable as the world moves more and more into that direction. So there's not necessarily competition inside of me as to whether or not to do good or to engage in business. A lot of it really intersects in a very deep way, including the pure philanthropic work puts me into rooms that not only allow me to do further work to help the rights of those who are oppressed all around the world, but it brings me into rooms with individuals who actually present business opportunities to me as well, even though I'm not necessarily there for that reason.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's an interesting conversation. I was on a panel today, and we were talking about this concept of one of the people was at Google, and she was talking about sort of the work that she does at Google sometimes conflicts with her own personal values, right? And so the whole conversation today was about when you're working in that kind of conflict, how do you resolve that conflict, and how do you? So, I mean, that's sort of a lesson.
Question. Yeah. Yeah.
Lesson learned, I think, for people listening is that doesn't always last. That doesn't end well usually, and you have to deconflict that at some point, right? And
correct.
Maybe she moves on, maybe she, does something else, which is very likely. But
correct. I mean, to me, the values piece is the most important. I remember Professor Kotler saying to me that Pierre Trudeau, when he was prime minister, or actually past being prime minister, but when Kotler got into parliament, Trudeau, and he had a visit, and Trudeau said, whatever you do, you can compromise on matters of politics, but never compromise on matters of principle. And I think that can analogously really apply to business as well. Sometimes people will say to me, hey, you're so strong on the Ukraine issue. Don't you run the risk on taking such a stand that there might be business people who'll be turned off by that and may not even want to work with you? And my response is, well, so be it. I feel that it's important to take a stand and to live a principled life and let the chips kind of fall where they may.
Yeah, exactly. And I wonder if that's the lesson for people who are listening and from what you're talking about, because sometimes we don't always have the luxury to work a job that we love, that we have to acknowledge that people are in different circumstances. But what I hear you saying is whether you're in a job that you love or has meaning to you or is creating, true value in the world, I think you still have to carve out time for those things that do feed the soul, right? You still have to. I think that's really, really important. I mean, I always talk about when I was, starting entrepreneur, for the first couple of years, I think I kind of lost myself in the job and in building that company, and I didn't do the activities that fed my soul. I didn't do the hobbies, the things that I love. I didn't.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think you have to really carve out that time to do some of the things that fulfill you. So
absolutely. No, I agree wholeheartedly. look, the bottom line is, from a practical standpoint, we have to put food on the table. We need to earn a living, etc. But it's interesting. I spend a bunch of time now reading and talking to Deepak Chopra. Last time I was with him, he was kind of laughing about the concept of work-life balance. His point was, there's no such thing as work-life balance. There's only life. There's only life. It's all life. And that's kind of how I look at it. I look at all of it as sort of holistic. It's all one, rather than necessarily carving one thing out of the other.
That's right.
And for me, it works.
I like the idea in that sense, right? That I'm looking for harmony.
That's it.
I'm looking for harmony. I don't look at it like you said. I'm like him. I don't think of it because it all blends together. It's all part of one.
Yeah.
And what I'm trying to do is find the harmony and there's no balance, because sometimes work takes up more time. Sometimes, I spend more time traveling and spending time with the boys and doing things that I love. Right. And so, I think that's what we should be searching for.
Yeah.
So talk about, you hinted on it a little bit, but you're just the executive producer on Sean Penn's new film about Vladimir Zelensky, and talk about that project and what it meant to you. And
absolutely, yeah.
I see all your social about. I've got a little envy going on with all the premieres and the things that you're doing around it. It looks like a lot of fun.
That sounds great. So I want to rewind just on one thing related to balance, just to make a point for the audience. Like, there's one area where balance is extremely important. That's the inner balance. So once you have that inner balance, my perspective is that whatever the world throws at you, because we don't really have control completely, and sometimes not much at all, over what the world throws at us. But if you're balanced in terms of your own inner experience, then you'll know how to handle whatever comes at you. But as regards the film, I had the opportunity last year to visit Kyiv with a guy named Aaron Kaufman, who is actually Sean Penn's film partner or the co-director of the film Superpower, about Volodymyr Zelensky. And because they're working on this film, they were offered all kinds of access to the leadership, and ended up helping in many ways, including bringing me to the presidential palace, where I was able to present to Andriy Yermak, Zelensky's chief aide, a number of the files that we at the Wallenberg Center had been working on, including our analysis of the Russian Federation's breaches of the Genocide Convention. We got a lot of coverage for that work. We drafted statutes for the establishment of a special tribunal to investigate crimes of aggression. Professor Kotler himself drafted a 10-point action plan for the community of democracies to implement. And that work is ongoing. Our team meets very regularly with the chief prosecutor of the International Criminal Court, and some of that work resulted in them charging Putin with the crime of abduction of children, and there might be more charges to come. A few weeks after our trip to Kyiv, I helped host the First Lady of Ukraine in New York. We had a number of really interesting meetings, including one at JP Morgan with Jamie Dimon and his wife and a number of their high net worth clients. So the work with them is ongoing. But through all that process, they so kindly really gave me the title of executive producer, and I helped with the film and helped promote the film. It's an interesting one, because what it started off as was, as I understand it, Sean thought after the Trump, but you got to do me a favor, kind of the impeachment #1 story, it got Sean thinking about, who is this Zelensky guy? I don't know much about Ukraine. this guy apparently was a comedian. He played the president on a very popular TV show. We should do a documentary on him, but more of a whimsical kind of documentary about this comedian turned president who got in the middle of this Trump impeachment thing. But sure enough, the day of the invasion, he's there for his first interview with Zelensky, and the whole tenor of the movie, the whole tone changed. And in fact, Sean and Aaron talk about how it's incredible how this man transformed and met the moment. And a big part of the movie is about that. So I'd highly recommend it. It's now streaming on Paramount Plus. It's been received very well. The Raoul Wallenberg Center guys actually loved it. As you alluded to, I did the premiere of the movie in Toronto, and it was a really great night. But that's kind of the story of the film in a nutshell, and I'm really excited for you and the audience members to see it.
Why do we, how do we combat the reason I ask, and I know I'm going to get sucked into this conversation because, I spent a lot of time in that region. I spent a good 7 years of my life there, and I spent, I studied that region in university, and so I understand a good bit the context of what's going on. But how do we get people to care about what is happening there and why we have to win this? And I guess the other question is, why should business care?
Right. Yeah, that's a great question. I think President Zelensky did an amazing job when he was in Washington and New York in making the case, and he framed it less as an attack on Ukraine, which of course it is, but an attack on the international world order. And if the world order is being attacked, then the repercussions and the trickle effect to democracies around the world, and therefore destabilization and potential economic havoc, which is already the results of which we're already suffering, then the case becomes quite clear that the Russian Federation needs to be stopped in its tracks, because if Ukraine ends up being taken over, what happens next? So we're looking at strategies even through film as to how to continue making the case, because at the fringes of let's say both the right and left wing, attention is beginning to go elsewhere, and that's a really dangerous thing. Pardon me?
Yeah, that's what I'm afraid of, right? I mean, you even look at the funding fight right now in Congress, right?
Exactly.
So it's concerning, and not only just in the U.S. I think that's a global thing.
Absolutely.
You're seeing sort of this weariness in Europe now. So it seems like we really have to double down on the messaging and on this continued fight, because I don't think it's going to be over soon, but we do have to win. And I think it's I'm glad this movie is out. I hope there's more to come, because I think we continually have to reframe that message and continue talking about it. So
we actually have other projects on the go, but I think storytelling is, as you know well, is a very powerful tool that can be used to convince people. So more to come, but we need to keep the pressure, the information pressure on.
Yeah, indeed. So you hinted on it a little bit. I want to move away from that, but you are investing. You are an investor, and you've done a lot of social impact investing. Talk a little bit about that and what you're really excited about in that space. That if you can give us some companies to look at and be excited about, and the things that they're.
Yeah. So really, I've always been very excited about the opportunity to help investors grow. My
Mhm.
core business, as you know, is in helping companies large and small design, build, and attract world-class teams. But in that regard, um, I had many kind of referrals to me, which I call kind of courtesy interviews, young entrepreneurs looking for advice. Um, and um, and I'm always happy to help an entrepreneur and offer whatever advice I can or introduce them to my network if they're credible enough. And word got out that Jay's being really helpful to entrepreneurs in effecting their success. And before I knew it, I began being inundated by entrepreneurs asking if I would join their advisory boards, if I would invest a little bit of money, etc. And and I did that, and I now have shares in probably like 70 different businesses. A lot of them simply by virtue of being an advisor, but I'm also invested in a number of them. We've had
Mhm.
some exits. We're on the verge of some others, but I'm really excited about the businesses that are sort of out there and really futuristic. So one of them that I've been a strategic partner to for many years, and who knows in the end what will happen with it if the thing will actually be executed at full scale. But the experience and the journey along the way has been amazing, and it's actually allowed me to meet all kinds of interesting people and do other business, and that is Hyperloop. I don't know if you've heard of the Hyperloop project,
Uh,
but
just a little bit, just a
yeah,
little tiny one.
yeah. So a number of years ago, Elon Musk came out with this concept of new mode of transportation, basically a capsule that would go essentially the speed of sound through air pressure and magnetics, completely environmentally friendly to the point about impact, so that you can hop into a Hyperloop in San Francisco and be in LA in a half an hour, kind of thing. And so I've been helping to kind of build the business case for that. There's a test track now, I think, in Italy. There's another one. There's another one in France, and there are plans to potentially go public soon. So cool businesses like that, I really enjoy. I've gotten into the AI space. Was pretty active during the boom times of Web3, and still have a number of businesses in that regard at the cross section of Web3, AI, gaming, and some of those businesses over the long haul, I'm quite bullish about. And there's a number of really great and prominent investors alongside me whose names you would all know. So it's really a cross section, but um, the more I get into the investment space, the more interested I am in impact. The latest business I'm in, which I'm super excited about, is we have a significant sized film fund, which is funding impact films. So the first film that we're invested in and developing is about Martin Luther King Jr., the King family today, and the path forward towards social justice, which will be released right before the next U.S. election.
Mhm.
And in that regard, we were at and our leaders actually played a big part in organizing the 60th anniversary of the March on Washington, which was an incredibly magical day. And we filmed a lot, as you might imagine, for that project at the march.
Mhm. Okay. So in speaking in that, the last 18 years, you've been publishing the annual Rosenzweig report on equality. Um, Talk about how that has impacted your life and how you get that started, and then how you've gotten so much attention with that report and its impact that it's had.
So interestingly, to your earlier point of how do you marry business and this passion for human rights. So I'm early on in my business. Professor Kotler at the time is in Parliament, first man on the Women's Caucus. As Attorney General and Minister of Justice, he transformed our Supreme Court at the time to the most gender representative in the world. So I thought to myself, this was 2006. What's the status of women in Canada in top roles in corporate Canada? So what I decided to do, just as a research project, is look at the 100 largest publicly traded companies in Canada. They have to disclose approximately their top 5 most highly compensated executives. So look at the top 500 executives in Canada and determine what percentage are women. And the first year that I did this report, I thought the numbers would be low. I didn't realize they'd be that low. It was 4.6%. And because the number was so low, I determined that I'm going to do this report year after year after year. We're about to embark on our 19th report. It's crazy to believe how time flies. So the good news is that the numbers have more than doubled. We're past 10%. The bad news is we're still hovering around 10%. So the numbers are quite low. But it intersects very nicely, not only with my work in business and even advocacy for women in business. And by the way, one of the things I'd say even on the tech investing side is that I'm heavily weighted towards investing in women for many reasons, including the fact that statistic after statistic shows that women-led ventures actually perform better.
Yeah.
But I was able to.
There's that, right?
Exactly. So there's a business case to be had if investors and business leaders really don't care about the moral imperative, the most important aspect of it. But it also intersects with the broader women's rights work we're doing. Women's rights is a pillar, for example, of the Raoul Wallenberg Center for Human Rights. We're advocating for heroes around the world, such as Nasrin Sotoudeh, the Mandela of Iran. So I was able to dedicate our 18th report to the brave women of Iran and around the world who are putting their lives on the line for freedom. And there's a connection, which I talk about, between economic empowerment and the empowerment of women or any of those who are oppressed. So it's all kind of interconnected to our earlier point of looking at things in life as holistically as one can.
What's the biggest surprise you've gotten from publishing that report?
Well, one of the things that happened to me earlier on was a criticism of me as a man doing a women's report. Like, why is a dude, working so hard to fight for equality of women?
Wow.
And then, and so this is kind of, in a sense, people tell me that I have a little bit of street cred because I didn't hop on the bandwagon when it was popular. And of course, my response was, an equal and fair society is really one where we all thrive. And I want my daughters to have every opportunity that my son has. So when we foster a just society for all, that's something that I think should be in everybody's interest.
Good answer. And completely get it. You talk about your kids. What is, for you, the thing that you're most worried about for them?
Well, what I tell my kids is, and it's something that I've realized over the last number of years, is they don't have to be like me. They don't have to go down any path that I went on. They don't have to ever think that they need to do this or that to please me. It's their life, and they have to live their life the way they want to, and pursue whatever passions they have and whatever makes them feel alive. And I think if they live a life with that kind of outlook and take the time to ground themselves and develop the balance that we talked about earlier on, so that whatever comes at them, they know how to handle it. They know how to be when the waves come in. I think they'll be okay. But the thing that's most important to me is that they understand the importance of developing that balance and grounding and being joyful by nature, not by accident, not because things happen.
That's good. I'm gonna have to borrow that. What do you, sort of the reverse of that question is, what are you excited about for them? What are the in the future are you excited about for them?
Well, listen, I'm so grateful that they're really, really good kids, and good citizens, and each of them have their own sort of different talents. One's in engineering, one's a painter, one's in marketing in the business world. So what I'm most excited for them is to just embrace life and realize that every aspect of life is just so beautiful. So I don't have any kind of goal in mind, or if they reach this peak, I think that'll be really exciting. I think just embracing the world as a whole and every aspect of it excites me, because I think if one takes the time to step back and realize how beautiful this life is, that's all they need.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think you're right. I think we often try to, in our own way, try to equip them to face the world and to take the world head on. But I'm not sure we can do that effectively. I think you're right. I think we have to love them and support them and let them find their path. And I'm not sure how well we do in trying to equip them. And I think we just have to. I don't know. It's an interesting concept. It's interesting as a parent to see them get to this, to become adults,
for sure,
to grow. So.
And by the way, this is not a pacifist point of view by any means. It's actually quite the opposite. The idea is to be as intensely involved as one possibly can with life.
Oh yeah.
And to be to be the most full-fledged human being they could possibly be.
Yeah, and facilitate that. Yeah.
Exactly. And for me, really, all I can do is help nurture it, but never force anything, never preach anything.
Yeah. Lead by example. Let them show. Let them see how you work and the work that you do, and how you live and how you live by your values, and that's the greatest lesson, I think.
I think that's right. They say that kids don't follow what their parents tell them; they follow their parents' actions.
Yeah, I think that's true. Jay, man, we could talk for hours, but I'm gonna respect your time, let you get out of here. But thank you so much.
I enjoyed it a lot. Thanks so much.
We didn't even get to talk about executive recruiting. We could have gone probably just. We probably need to have another show just on that.
I touched on it a bit, but we'll do another one on that. Yeah,
because I think that's a fascinating and changing field too. I'm sure. So.
Yeah. For sure. Let's do a session on that with pleasure. Yeah. Okay, man. Good talking.
Well, thank you. Thank you for spending some time with us today here on Power Lunch Live Special Edition. And by the way, how can people find you? We do have to wrap up that way.
So myname.com, JAY Rosenzweig.com. You'll see my personal website, which has tabs on my purpose work, my investment work, the women's study, diversity, et cetera, my main business, the recruiting. So that's probably the best place to find me, jrosenzweig.com.
Well, we'll put that in the show and the link so people can find you more easily. And appreciate your time today.
Thank you. Talk soon. Take care, man.